Hello and welcome to the Stream of Chaos. My name is Dave and I will be your keeper of arcane lore for this session of Call of Cthulhu. Today we are beginning the second scenario of two contained within Hoist Regency Cthulhu. As we've resolved the last one that's all collected over on the YouTube channel, and we're going to be returning to Regency, England for some more etiquette and apocalypse. That worked. I want to give a thank you to Roll20 and Sirenscape for being tools which are used to improve our games. Got to throw in my order here and it's tossed the whole thing out of whack. You can get your own copy of this book, which I've already lowered, at chaosium.com, and you can find all of our collected live plays over on the Chaosium YouTube channel. If you are watching there, we do stream live each week over on the Twitch channel, and I'm pretty sure it's Daylight Savings is finally happening next week, the first of many bouts, so we will change slightly, but we're always pinned to 10 a.m. Australian Eastern, and the Twitch channel calendar thing is calibrated for that too, so that will always update. Point of confirmation, Jackson?
I was going to jump in with a technicality because Queensland is always on Australian Eastern Standard Time, whereas we jump between Australian Eastern Standard Time and Daylight Time. So it's more helpful to say we're pinned at 10 a.m. Melbourne, Sydney time.
That's fair. That's reasonable.
There you go.
10 a.m. Melbourne. So you can find it all there. We also will update the schedule for next week. Share all of that. There's also the final episode of Graveyards of Arkham is going to be next week. So make sure you tune in for that. All of those videos are collected over on the YouTube channel as well. So you can see the thrilling conclusion there. And I think that clears my plate. Without further ado, let's return to the scenario and reintroduce our investigators. It has been a full year since the previous events. Our investigators have had, well, the survivors have had a chance to reintegrate themselves into society, sort of get used to the humdrum of this and that, of day-to-day life. And our two absent, vanished, lost investigators have had a chance to be replaced. We're going to meet one of them now, but it's in a slightly stranger context. Miss Jane Radcliffe, you are dressed in a, night shift. Your feet are completely bare, and you have nothing in your hands or pockets. You're standing on scraggly black stone, and as you shift your feet slightly, one of your toes rubs across a sort of opalescent jewel nestled into the ground. There are rolling waves of these rocks that go far into the horizons, and it's broken up by these tall, violent trees of erupting black ichor that plunge towards the sky, then form a canopy above through which you can barely make out cold and distant stars. You are keenly aware that you are not alone in this space. Your breath is quick and light, and your hackles are raised as you know that something is watching you. Something is hunting you. Branches break high in the trees overhead as they snap, and you hear this thundering clap, like a leather belt snapping, as something takes flight and then dives down towards you. You race as quickly as you can, feet bloodied by the ground beneath you, running and running for who knows how long. Finally, you come to a small pool in a center of a glade, what this strange forest has for one, and this silvery shimmering liquid within it calls to you. There's a peace to be found within. You kneel down, up your hands, and raise it to your lips. And as you drink this cool liquid that flows down your chin and into your stomach, it cleanses you and brings you home. When you wake up, you're in a 4-poster bed in a nice but slightly faded estate. There's slightly musty curtains hanging on the walls and things. There's fine paintings, but they're very much out of fashion. And you feel yourself clammy with sweat. Your sleeping gown is matted to you. Your throat is incredibly dry, and you have a hunger inside you as if you have not eaten for several days. Leaning over you is a doctor who's currently got his hand on your forehead and his sort of like fingers checking your pulse, and holding your hand is Mr. George Potterton. But first, I want to meet you. Jackson, can you please describe your investigator and introduce us to Miss Radcliffe?
I almost said I am Miss Jackson, and I'm playing. I am Jackson, and I'm playing Miss Jane Radcliffe, a well-to-do young lady from elsewhere, Buckwell, I believe. I imagine at least a few towns over, who has come to Tarryford after being robbed by brigands. Her caravan overturned and her goods gone. But fortunately, in the last 3 months, the Pottertons have been most kind and generous to me. And indeed, seemingly, were willing to fetch the doctor when I fell ill. Is that the impression I get? I've been sorry. Is that the situation at hand, that I've been unwell for some time?
That's exactly it. You're kind of you're just waking now, and yeah, very much out of it. You feel like you just went to bed a little while ago, and now you're waking up and feeling all the worse for wear.
Oh dear. Oh well, and you know, I've been here for 3 months. Is this is it untoward for Mr. George Potterton to be in my bedroom, or is it that we're a little bit more familiar? Maybe that's up to Jim.
It is up to Jim, and I will also say, yeah, it's. I wonder how you welcome it. Let's introduce Jim first, and then we will get the context. Jim, I will set the scene as well. So, Mr. Potterton, you have come to attend Miss Radcliffe, and possibly are being so forward because she has been sleeping for 3 days now. She went to bed, and then come the morning, she would not wake. Thinking she just needed her rest, she was recovering from the incident, and though it was some months ago, her sensibilities must have been severely shaken. You allowed her to slumber and left her dinner by her door, not looking to disturb her. The servants kept an ear out, but as time has gone on, you have gone to fetch the doctor. You have also heard her mumbling strange things. She speaks of a dark and distant place. She mutters, no, she's being followed. She can't see them. They have no face. How can they find her here? She runs and she runs, short, quick breath, and then she fades again into just sort of like almost stasis. Some of these strange mentions, even of the jewels that she finds at her feet, have caused you to call not only Dr. Parsons, but also some of your older friends, but we'll meet them in a moment. Let's meet Mr. Potterton first.
Let's do that. Okay, yes, I have decided to not play Georgiana anymore because she's paced, so I'm playing George instead. And George is a young man. We spotted him briefly in the last adventure when he was hiding in a sarcophagus atop the struggling lady Emily. We were to try and protect her from the monsters that were outside.
Heroically.
Exactly. Yeah, he's an all right sort. He's fine. He felt fairly kind of normal looking, maybe a little weathered despite his youth. His father is not doing great. His mother died when he was young. He was sweet on Lady Emily, and then her father died and withdrew from society.
Her name's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, sorry.
But yes.
But Eliza, it would be a shortening, so you're not far off the letter count, just the combination of the alphabet.
There we go.
Some of the letters, right? Just in the wrong order.
And then he finds a new friend, and then suddenly she sleeps for 3 days. So I was about to ready to bust out a will. I think at this point, everyone I get attached to goes away. Yeah. So I think I'm very happy to see Miss Radcliffe being well, but will hastily withdraw my hands away from patting her. I don't know what the reverse of a palm is because it's so untoward.
What else?
Naughty.
Naughty indeed. Let's also. Now, it's not quite the same as the other two, but we did meet Mr. Potterton in the previous scenario, so I would ask, what has he been up to a little bit in the intervening year? How has he developed from the character that we first met?
Sure. Well, Mr. Potterton, I think, had a seed of some kind of mythos investigator substance to him, managed to not completely lose his mind when confronted by seeing a monster, or at the very least lost his mind in a way that was conducive to the situation. So in the intervening year, he has basically maybe spent a little less time focused on the pleasantries of his life. He's still obviously taking time to try and save his family by becoming a banker, but if anything, he's been trying to emulate the heroic Captain Stone, who he saw fearlessly dispatch one of those creatures in front of him. I know that in this time period, a lot of nobles were put on military lists when they were children, so they could technically get a post. It was like in the Navy, you were put on when you were born, and that way, if you had 15 years in the service, you could come in as an officer when you were 15. But I think that I have demanded that be like moved across to whatever branch of the service Captain Stone was in specifically. I'm obviously not going to go to war. That would be far too silly. But I would like the credit, and I've been doing a lot of sword fighting. I've got a fencing master. I talk a lot about Captain Stone. I've insisted on getting trained by somebody who claims he knew him, at least on the war, but in the war. But yeah, it's all much the same.
Captain Stone was in the 95th Regiment of Foot Rifles in the Light Division.
I know it well. I've got a poster of the full band on my wall.
Name your favorite song. All right, fantastic. So that is Mr. George Potterton. We'll now go across to two of our investigators walking in at the same time. You have been summoned because Mr. Potterton, after several days of Miss Radcliffe's unrest, called you. He mentioned some of the strangeness that she was muttering and said that it sounded familiar to the rumors that he's heard you speak of that strange night almost exactly 1 year ago today. The two of you will arrive together to see Mr. Potterton and Dr. Parsons tending to Miss Radcliffe, and I'll ask you to introduce your investigators. Art, why don't you begin?
Hi, I'm Art, and I will be revisiting my role as the good Reverend Samuel Jennings, who has had quite the year.
Mm-hmm.
As is written in James 2:17, faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. So he has been taking that to heart and focusing his faith on the action of learning more about the strangeness of the world, things that that happen that might not necessarily be as wrong religion, but kosher as other things. He is, I think, otherwise much as you found him before. There is probably he's maybe a little bit more composed. That, you know, he has a bit more of sort of like a not quite righteous indignation towards the world, but there's definitely sort of a drive to him now that perhaps he missed. He's still softly spoken, he's still deeply caring, but there's something else there that's pushing him forward. And he is accompanied by someone who now shares his experience of the loss of a sibling, and who was, through circumstance more than anything else, kind enough to agree to the...
We're engaged.
Yeah.
Big, check the ring.
Check this bling out.
In the intervening year, in order to allow both of them to properly understand what is going on with the mythos, and also because Emma is Miss Wentworth is now quite alone in the world, at least as insofar as siblings are concerned. The Reverend did make a proposal of marriage that has been accepted, although not yet fully finalized. They're engaged, and you know it's fine because it's been a while, but the loss of a family member is a pretty good reason to hold off on having a big joyous celebration. So we're just kind of rolling with it for the moment.
100%.
Yeah.
I have two questions before we pass across to Alex to reintroduce Miss Wentworth. Actually, the first I'll ask is, so as Reverend Jennings attends here, previously he's carried his like trusty Bible that's been his go-to. As you come to this meeting, where they've sort of spoken about some of the darker dreams. Are you carrying any other books with you that suggest your other interests?
Yes, I think the Reverend does have sort of an additional like manuscript book that is his personal notes that he's been collating in much the same way that a doctor has something where they write their observations, their theories, things they've tried for patients. The Reverend has observations, theories, things that he's tried, or things that he may attempt to try. There's a little bit more of a the journal is, or the manuscript is more about postulating things and drawing stuff together. He still carries a Bible, but whereas before the spine would have been easier to open in places where the Bible talked about things like grief or overcoming obstacles. Now it seems that maybe some additional breaks in the spine have occurred around pages that deal with things like exorcisms and evoking the Holy Spirit for the purposes of protection and things like that. His focus has maybe shifted a little.
All right, fantastic. And lastly, then, as we go across to Miss Wentworth, something I'd only just considered now, there was a ring that had some focus in the previous scenario, and that was Miss Georgiana's one that she tried to extend slightly by hanging between worlds. She also found a rather curious gem from that dark realm. I wonder if either of those have made their way into your engagement ring, or if they are pointedly absent.
I mean, for one, I don't think that engagement rings were a thing in this time period.
Damn,
but
that sucks for me.
Yeah. It would be a wedding band, but no engagement.
Yeah.
Getting it fitted.
I think the gem, I can absolutely have recovered that and brought it back if that would.
I think we have it, but we keep it in a locked box in a drawer somewhere. I think my sister's ring I keep on a chain around my neck. I think I wear that. I think I carry it with me, but not on my finger.
Is it perhaps kept? Because one thing that people often did was keep correspondence. So perhaps correspondence you might have had with your sister, and potentially you and I would have exchanged some correspondence maybe before we had come to the arrangement that we currently have.
Yes, there would be correspondence between us. My sister and I had never spent a day apart until she died, so no need. Although at some point I probably, as children, I probably, yes, you spend every day very far apart.
Actually, there is probably something that the Reverend would have shared. I probably
slipped some notes. We probably slipped notes under each other's doors as children, and I have that kind of correspondence. It's just one letter that's just like, bitch.
The Reverend definitely has a box with things stored in it that's tucked away, but that would absolutely include correspondence to his deceased sister post her death as a way of still trying to connect with her and trying to process grief. So I think the Reverend might have shared that with Emma as this is how I've processed some stuff. So I leave that as an offering to you, Alex, if that's a thing that Emma might have done or might have gone, that's weird, no.
I guess on that note, hi, I'm Alex, I'm playing Emma Wentworth. I'm engaged, and I'm processing the loss of my sister, which I thankfully did not see because I was unconscious at the time, because it sounds like it was quite traumatic. I'm processing my grief in my own way, and it involves a shotgun.
Yeah.
I've been going out riding and hunting and shooting quite a lot. The engagement to the dear Reverend has been very, very good for me because it gives me a degree of freedom that I would not have otherwise. And for all intents and purposes, Miss Emma Wentworth does appear to be the same as she once was. She's still very friendly, bright and bubbly when you meet her, but she does seem to end conversations fairly swiftly. She's always going somewhere doing something, and whether that's something that she's actually doing or whether it's a mechanism to exit conversations as swiftly as possible, who knows? But if you are one of the individuals of the town who enjoys shooting activities, you've probably noted that she is out there quite a lot, and that's, you know, I think that's a reasonable way to process grief.
100%. It's also worth noting
get real good at shooting stuff.
Like firearms, like rifles and things, are very unladylike. A
Correct.
bow and arrow is considered a womanly pursuit if you wanted to
Yes.
lean into like societal ones,
Well,
or you could be
do you
saying
know-
that you've kind of broken away from it.
Yeah. I mean, look, a bow and arrow I'm sure would be much more appropriate, but I just don't know how much damage it's going to do to 7-foot tall things with faces in their stomachs.
And that's
That rearrange people's organs into creatures like themselves. So I feel like a rifle is what I'm going with. A shotgun is where we're landing with this.
yeah, 100%.
Also, if anyone questions such, the good Reverend does live in a farming town. It is quite common for everyone to have firearms, and he's not much of a physical sort of hunting man. So my beloved has taken an interest in helping me keep my firearms in a usable fashion should they be required for the defense of the church and the parish. I'm
Times
fully...
are changing. Deal with it.
Get over it.
Yeah, the Reverend absolutely keeps the guns at the like rectory so that they're not at like Emma's family home, because I imagine they would get confiscated, and very much is like, you know,
Oh yeah.
yes, they are here for you. I will make excuses to make sure this is not a problem, and if anyone asks, we'll sort them.
Stuff them. Fantastic. All right. So with Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth stepping into the room, the entire cast is assembled. Dr. Parsons steps up, having taken a temperature. It says, "Thank goodness she's all right. She's awake. Miss Radcliffe, how are you feeling?"
Well, I suppose a little bit better than the last few days. Thank you, Doctor, for your attention. I think I should rest a little while longer, but I'm sure with George, Mr. Potterton nearby, I should be very well looked after. Thank you.
Yes. I'm glad you're looking much the better. Jackson, to start us off, can I please ask you to make a sanity roll, as those dreams do fade somewhat, but points remain in your mind.
There were fever dreams. I've heard about fever dreams. They're pretty whack. Regular success.
No point taken. As you said, just a fever dream. Something must have
Fever
come upon you,
dreams.
and you needed to
Yes,
sweat it out.
indeed.
That said, the strange place does stick in your mind a little, and that cool liquid, 5 to the end, is sort of burned into your memory slightly. As Dr. Parsons steps up away and begins to gather his things, the rest of you gather around Miss Radcliffe. Miss Radcliffe, you've had the pleasure of meeting Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth in the past. You have attended some social events with Mr. Potterton. Not a great many, but enough to be introduced to one another, to know each other by name, and to be familiar enough. You're not exactly clued into the esoteric nature of Mr. Potterton's pursuits. That's still beyond it. But you recognize
I
these
get the
as...
sense, I imagine, they've got like some shared, like, close bonds from something whack.
Exactly that. As Dr. Parsons is gathering his things up and all of you are standing around the bedside, he mentions, "It's fortunate that you came, Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth, Mr. Potterton as well. If I might have a brief word with the three of you. Take your time, wish Miss Radcliffe well, and then just a short word. When you're so kind." And he's going to step to the side of the room to give you like polite distance, but remain nearby.
Oh, I hope I didn't put all of you out to trouble just to see me. I'm sure I'll be back on my feet before too long.
Not at all. It was perfectly no trouble. But I'm just glad you're well, Miss Radcliffe, and I apologize if I was slightly hasty in calling everyone. It just you were saying some things. The what you said in the fever dream. It was what I told the others, and
Oh, yes. Well, they were most weird dreams. Forests of black ichor and some kind of arcane pool. It's rather like a twisted fairy tale, I suppose. Something from my past, perhaps. But I feel that with you here, Mr. Potterson, the bad dreams are well and truly chased away.
I get caught somewhere between like trauma of the remembering what that ichor might be and like little burst of pride. Oh, well, yes. Yes. Well, I'm. Look, I think it's best if we talk about your visions, perhaps dreams a little more. It's always best to consider these things. Reverend, sorry, did you have wisdom to share?
Oh, no, just that when Miss Radcliffe is feeling a little better, if you would be so kind, madam, as to recount your dreams, if it is too difficult to speak them, perhaps I would be very happy to read an account of them if you would prefer to write it down. But if you could, at some point, give us a more detailed description of what occurred in them.
Of course. Reverend, you are one who believes in the interpretation of dreams, that they are messages or omens?
We can never be too certain what is a passing fancy and what might have deeper meaning. So it's always worth gathering the information, even if it does turn out to be nothing more than a passing fancy.
Reverend,
I wouldn't worry yourself, Radcliffe. You
were too kind for doing so. I must thank the Lord that he delivered me to Tarryford these short months ago, that I should find myself among such kind and generous people.
Perhaps
work wonders.
Perhaps if you wish to gather yourself, then we'll have a quick word with the doctor. But before we do, if you don't mind me asking, Miss Wentworth, when you slept some time ago, did you dream?
I can't say that I did, no. But if you remember, I had quite a nasty fall, so it was a much different situation, where as a fever as opposed to an injury of the kind that I suffered.
Yes. Okay. Well, perhaps there's no connection then. But we should all the same take the writings that you mentioned, Reverend, to be sure.
I think there's the Reverend leans a little bit in and goes, Potterton, if there's a connection, we'll find it. But
if there's a connection, it will find us.
Just in relation to some conversations Mr. Potterton and I have had, Miss Radcliffe. Nothing to be concerned about.
Well, no, that's fine. I'm sure I wouldn't follow them anyway. Mr. Potterton is, of course, quite learned in the books and well, anything really.
I before a little more before.
I think the Reverend just kind of like nods and is just in the back of his head is like, nah, yes. Love.
Love.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Emma definitely cuts a look at Mr. Potterton like, really?
Yeah. I love asterisks.
Yeah. It's very much like, oh, okay, that's fine. This young lady is.
What a nice thing to say.
Yeah. Well, nice. She's obviously very
polite, huh?
It's a big fall.
I mean, I was gonna go with maybe like simple, but yeah, you know, clearly a woman of simple tastes.
I'll have you know that I'm a perfectly acceptable accountant, and I am a very learned man.
I'll also say,
Oh, I believe it. Don't get me wrong.
Mr. Potterton is considered the most eligible bachelor in Tarryford. He is from a very reputable family.
I think of myself as an inheritor of Captain Stone's, grandeur, as well as a lot of collectable memorabilia possessions that I managed to purchase at discount rate.
No. You really are just a huge fanboy. That's all this is. Remember, Captain Stone didn't take his jacket into the Dark Realm. It was wrapped around the cat or whatever. So you can have the jacket maybe somewhere.
I also got the all the notes that Lord Northlake had about rebuilding his gun. So I'm going to try.
And you're working on it yourself? Dude, that kicks ass. That's so sick. All right.
Reforged will be musket that was broken.
I'm going to briefly turn to Miss Wentworth and just say, Miss Wentworth.
Yes, dear?
My dear, do you feel like speaking to Miss Radcliffe would be beneficial, or would you prefer to speak with the doctor? I'm just wondering whether a lady.
Quiet. I will remain here. Quiet. You can catch me up later.
Quite adept at befriending people.
Okay.
Yeah. So I
was going to suggest the same thing. I'm going to remain at the bedside and kind of just
get a bit more information in a less awkward way than the friend can.
Yeah.
So
I'm a young lady in a night shift.
I'm going to make a show of like hurrying the men out of the room and just being like, off you go. Off you go. You have witnessed that she is fine, and you have witnessed her awakening, and all is well, and now out.
Out.
Goodbye. Bye.
Out.
As the Reverend Doctor and Mr. Potterton retreat from the room, Samuel, as you're sort of like taking your notes and scribes, and you like put the quill back inside and go to close the book, you can't help but notice with a faint chill that the date is all too similar to the one you shared, two of you at least, a year ago, it now being September 1814, and only days away from when the Northlakes would usually hold their famed summer ball. As the three of you...
It is definitely at the forefront of my mind, because Emma deserves to feel good in the world, as does anyone. She suffered quite a terrible loss, and so I think there is something in the back of the Reverend's head of going, I want to make sure she's okay, and perhaps I should find something nice for her, but has no idea what that would look like or
how
what that
to
would
be a person.
You need like Google.
Just kind of going. I think he's a little lost, because like he knows how to like help people who've come in with like, their grandmother's died, or their child has died, or like they're they broke a leg, or like the stuff that like everyday people
problem that you have been unable to deal with yourself.
Yeah, this is
hard to
one where it's like,
on that.
Don't know how to, and also absolutely doesn't necessarily want to be like, hey, I'm here to counsel you. It's just like, I want to provide silent support. I don't know how to do that because I don't know this woman super, like I know her, but I don't know her. And I would like to try. So that's where he's
all right
at. So he knows the date very well.
All too well. The two of you step outside the room and join Dr. Parsons in the hallway. As you're there, he lets a little bit of the... He's a professional man, but he lets a little bit of that slide away and steps forward to a closer distance, still clasping his medical case. He says, thank you for summoning me, Mr. Potterton. Reverend Jennings, thank you as well for attending. I meant to reach out to you as well soon. I'd advise you not share this with Miss Radcliffe, but she was possibly the worse for wear. She's not the first person to fall ill of this sleeping sickness. There are 6 now. Well, there were 7 last night, including Miss Radcliffe. There were 6 recently once she awoke, and I'm afraid one of them has perished in the night. He hasn't woken, his heart's gone still, and I've only just come from treating his body and taking it away to my own surgery, where it will be prepared and ultimately delivered to the cemetery. All of this is rather strange. There's no linking between it that I can tell, and the whole thing seems abnormal to an uncomfortable degree. I hate to call on you or thrust more responsibility than you desire, but given the events of last year and you're proving yourselves, well, you were the first names that came to mind.
I understand, Doctor. You need not to explain your reasons. They are sound and they are good. Please tell us how we can help.
I don't understand the connections here. Everyone I've treated, they sleep, some mumble in their dreams. Miss Radcliffe's the only one to speak any whole words. I truthfully don't know what to do. I thought of seeking out...
Have any others awoken?
None. All that have fallen asleep, at least for this time as long, that have reached out to me and sought my aid, none have woken. They've been sleeping for some days, more weeks now, and I fear that the longer this goes on, the more may perish.
I understand you have a duty to your patients, Doctor, but in these extenuating circumstances, would you be willing to share the names of those still sleeping and the unfortunate gentleman who
Yes.
passed?
Yes.
Lady.
I would. This is a risk that must be taken. If nothing happens soon, then I fear that these may die. Here, I already took the privilege of writing down the names and the addresses that they can be found at, as well as some simple symptoms that I've begun to collect. I'll be heading tomorrow to meet with one of them, noted here, and he thumbs one of the names, and tonight I'm also planning to visit some of the others in Tarryford. I'll do as much as I can, but I'm concerned that this requires more significant investment in help. He passed the name across, and you begin to look through them. The first on there is Garrick Copeland, and I can write these into the chat as well. And he is the owner of the Four Feathers Tavern in town. He is also the one that died last night. Dr. Parsons is, while capable at treating with grief, not the most excellent at it, and suggests that his surviving wife may be someone to speak to begin to get a sense of the thing. The other is there is a couple, Maggie and John Pilling. They work in town. They are married. John is a late general laborer and Maggie does laundry. The next is Morris Solsmith. He is a baker. He is still sleeping, and his wife is tending to him. The penultimate is Marcus Tavistock. He is a young man with no notable family, and he is being housed at Reverend Byron Choke's chapel, where he is being watched. And the last one, and the one that seems a bit different to the rest, who are all sort of like labourers and people within Tarryford, is Nathaniel Havering, who you met at the North Lake Ball last time. This is the gentleman who was a trader of sorts and sort of made his way recently into the gentry. He actually has his own estate outside of Tarryford, and it is the Stornley House, and will take more significant visiting. This is the gentleman that Dr. Parsons is going to visit tomorrow evening, and that connection could be used to secure an invitation inside if you so wished it. So 6 people, Miss Radcliffe recently among them, and the deceased is Garrick Copeland, the owner of the Four Feathers Tavern.
Garrick Copeland. So Maggie and John Pilling.
Yep.
They are both asleep.
They are both, and they are being watched by Lucy Newman, who is Maggie's unmarried sister. She has come into town to basically assist them.
Sorry, so I've been unconscious for like 3 days straight?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty. You are like as you're now waking and becoming less groggy. Actually, we'll cut across to the two of you now. You're realizing you don't feel great. You feel like weak. You feel as if you are like sunk into the sheets. They are slick across you. You are ravenously hungry. Your mouth is parched. Yeah, you've had quite the ordeal. You really do feel quite unwell. You probably I think it like makes sense that you put on airs a bit around the others. You now do feel like a bit of a flutter and almost notable weakness.
Didn't realize it's been that long until now. And the first one to wake up.
The first thing I would have done is get the servants to bring food, like broth and bread, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying you can. So I will pass across to the two of you.
Simple.
You call for one of the servants. There are significantly fewer than the Northlake estate, but you do. There is still assistance at Mr. Pottson's and they quickly head away. They had tried to feed you
something plain, bread, water, broth.
Yes, Miss Wentworth will return
immediately.
Will return soon. They head away and will come back in a short moment. And for now, at least, the two of you are by yourselves. Miss Emma, as you sit down here, I wonder if there's any evidence of your significant injury sustained last year. Do you wince slightly? Are you able to cover it up completely? You suffered like basically a minor reworking of your internal organs, shattered ribs, and basically had to have your stomach restructured.
I think there's definitely a slight wince as she sits. Not a wince of pain, but more just like the discomfort of like things aren't quite that kind of. It's not easy to sit in awkward sit in awkward positions. So it's like the pull of scar tissue basically. As at this point in time, I think corsets will be coming out of fashion. They'll be getting less restrictive. She's just pretty much dispensed with anything boned entirely. Simply cannot wear that sort of thing, and is kind of definitely embracing the looser, more flowing styles of fashion because she can't do corsets anymore at all.
Also, as it's very much your wheelhouse, embroidery and fashion and things, you possibly find yourself in a strange position to make yourself the reinforced garment that you need, possibly going so far as to weave defensive materials in future into some of these.
Possibly, or commission them at least. She was never good at doing it herself, but definitely the designing and the knowledge side of it. It's definitely looking into different fabrics and different ways to layer fabrics to achieve a similar supportive effect without the pain that a boned corset would give her. So she's dressed a little differently, and you can see that, and there is evidence that she is not entirely comfortable. Like it's challenging for her to perch on the edge of a bed or that sort of thing.
The gentlemen leave the room, and the two of you find yourselves alone for probably the first time. You have not shared a fresh conversation. I pass across to the two of you.
Miss Wentworth, I apologize for my voracious appetite. It's quite unladylike of me. How long have I been asleep?
Oh, my dear, 3 days.
3 days?
3 days.
Really?
And don't worry about being unladylike in my presence. I don't know how long you've been in town for, but it won't take terribly long for people to mention my own unladylike tendencies, so truly, my dear, don't worry.
No, I've heard nothing of the sort in these last 3 months, although I suppose I have been quite contained here to the Tarryford estate. Mr. George does rather keep me busy. A blush.
It's just. Where did you say you were from again?
Check the bio page. I am from. Check my notes, but I did write it down. Something like Buckwell. Buckwell. There it is. Buckwell.
You'd recognize that as another town in the same region. You probably wouldn't have crossover there.
I'm sorry for eavesdropping. It was one of the first things I heard, I suppose, back in the real world. But you mentioned there was a connection to some other event. Is this illness struck before?
Possibly. We're not too sure. That's why we were called in. We've seen and heard similar things, but it's unsure whether it's connected at this stage, whether there's other instances. But you're awake, and that's the main thing, and there's nothing really else to worry about. I'm sure the Pottertons have been taking marvelous care of you and continue to do so.
Yes, I am quite fortunate, and I do feel my strength returning.
Now, if you do feel any lingering effects, or if I know that dreams can sometimes be upsetting long after they've faded, and the lingering sensation of them can remain. And I personally believe that dreams are our own mind's way of feeding back to us the things that we are dwelling on, sometimes for good and sometimes for ill. So if you do find yourself wrapped in memories of these dreams, please don't hesitate to get in touch with my fiance, the Reverend. He's exceptionally good at counseling people on all kinds of matters.
I should very much like to take the Reverend's advice. If you could fetch a quill and paper and parchment, quill and parchment, is that what we have?
I guess.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I should like to be of assistance in him assisting me.
I probably have a bag with with that in it on me, just because.
Heck yeah, investigators.
We are.
You're investigators now.
We're investigators now.
It's next to the shovel
the
and the
Reverend
gun.
and I are just, generally speaking, prepared.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and
Next to the
you were
50-foot
drawn
hemp
here.
rope we all have
Yeah.
for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. And a 10-foot
Right.
pole.
10-foot pole.
You were drawn here under suspicious circumstances. You would have brought
Yes.
your stuff.
I would have brought some notes and just some writing materials for sure.
Easily done.
And given my tendency towards fashion and related design, I just generally am known to carry things to just sketch and draw and make plans in. So I would absolutely provide that to Miss Jane.
You can hear goodbyes being exchanged in the hallway, and you have only a moment before the others will return. Jim?
Before there's a goodbye, I have a little bit of this fancy natural philosophy skill that all the kids are keen on. Can I, hearing that all of these other people are sick, kind of smile and nod and say something like, well, I mean, I read that there's a winged beetle from the tropics that the bite of which is capable of sending someone into a stupor to try and find some kind of any explanation for this.
Yeah, make a so just this is off the dome, so it's gonna be limited and tough to do, but go ahead and make a natural philosophy roll, see if anything's
For sure. I also think that it's sort of me just scrambling for an explanation for myself in the same
100%.
way that I was going, look, Captain Stone's bagged another trophy when there was clearly all these terrible monsters going around, and that is a failure, appropriately.
kind of you do try and scramble a little bit, and Dr. Parsons will have a, we're a ways away from the tropics. I doubt it's relevant. You also just on instinct and thumbing through it, find no easy conclusion to draw. You can see how Dr. Parsons was somewhat stumped, and is kind of falling back on just classic, like, keep them as hydrated as possible, hope they wake.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it seems like you have everything in hand then. We'll see
quite
what we can do from...
Yes, we're doing what we can. Thank you for your time. I'll say a quiet word to Miss Radcliffe and see that she's well, and then I'll take my leave. If you're in town, call upon my surgery. My wife will be present if I am not, and I'll be checking in on the other sleeping patients this evening, and on the morrow I'll meet Mr. Havering and his wife. So if you want to travel with me, then simply let me know.
Perhaps, yes. I may take the opportunity of calling on you regardless, Doctor. I would be interested to get a more detailed description of what you have found so far. I assume you have notes at the clinic. So just a general, if you would not mind me reviewing those, I understand those are private, but if you wouldn't mind, the more information I have, the more likely we are to find potential avenues of investigation.
Reverend, people put their faith in you, and so do I. Consider my notes yours. Anything you can do to assist, I will take upon gladly. Understand, from what I've seen, they've simply fallen into slumber and yet to wake. They breathe softly, their chest rises and falls, but slowly they draw hungrier and thirstier. The falling of Garrett Copeland, Mr. Copeland, the tavern keep, was sudden. This was not starvation that took him. It's more like his heart gave out, his will to live simply faltered, and he drifted to a deeper, eternal rest. He's with the Lord now, but I don't want any more to take that same path than need to.
Oh, no, certainly not.
It's early morning now. I'll be heading back into town. Seek me at my surgery this evening if you wish, and we can speak more.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll shake his hand.
He'll head back into the room, and the four of you will reconvene. Miss Radcliffe.
I think what I probably would have been doing with Jane, with her permission, would have been, propping her up on the pillows, getting, a cloth and helping her, like, kind of just tidy up in general,
Yep.
like, de-sweatifying and combing her hair a bit and just kind of making her look a little bit more, helping her look a little bit more presentable, especially after her comments about George, just being like, oh, well, you know what? She's clearly into him. He's a young lad who's whatever. I'm just gonna kind of help her get a little bit more presentable.
Yeah, as the two of you sort of like get yourself into place, you'll find Miss Radcliffe to be a very fair young woman, enviably pretty, and of good standing.
Yeah.
She carries herself
so
well, and she goes through all the same rigors. She speaks elegantly and very much is of the nobility. Alex, would you like to make either a psychology or a spot hit? As you do this.
Spot hidden I'll do. Psychology I thought about before, but I'm just not very good at it, and I don't think it's who Emma is. I think Emma takes people at face value unless she notices something.
100%.
And mechanically speaking, I'm prettier.
Just
want to get that one out there.
Noted.
70. Excuse me, appearance 70.
80.
No!
Oh! That's
Alright.
hilarious.
Let's see what I can do about that.
Good,
Any more?
but yes, I will
You're
spot
the
hidden.
prettiest in the world to me, Jane.
That'll be Jane. Oh my god.
That's not good enough.
Nah, not today. Distracted.
And genuinely, you notice
today.
nothing amiss. If anything, she's a little faint. She leans on you for support, and probably the most thing you notice is a
very
woman who
good at
could
what
use a
she
little
does.
bit of help.
Yes.
As the doctor comes inside, he will go through some cursory things. Basically, Jane, he urges you to rest. As strange as it might seem, you've been in the bed for some time and you should stay here a little longer. Take your broth and take your soups and find the time to recover. Should you need more assistance, you need only call upon him if you can find your way into town. Either he or he advises against the apothecary, but some tinctures and things might lend you strength. You can call upon, I think it's Dr. It's a Carlton at the apothecary.
Carlton's apothecary.
Otherwise, you seem in good enough health, and
Excellent. I should wait until the doctor leaves before.
he bids
before
adieu to all
mentioning
of you, and then he will make his departure, heading out of the estate. And I leave it to the four of you.
What time is it?
It's quite early morning, actually. The Reverend and Miss Wentworth were summoned at the earliest hour, probably roused from slumber, but graciously chose to make the voyage. It is like 7 or so. Like it's pretty early. Like this is like first thing that's happened. People have ridden in with the sunrise.
Very good. Well, I should think I would like to rest but a little while longer, but before long, I think I should be back on my feet to start rebuilding my strength. A turnabout town would perhaps do me good later in the day.
That sounds sensible. Fresh air. I could ready some horses and we could take a ride, head into the town itself.
Mr. Potterton, I wouldn't put her on horseback just yet.
Okay.
A carriage.
The carriage, then. Yes. It seems sensible.
Is it walkable to town, or are we ways away?
It's a long. Out? It would be a long walk into
Gotcha.
town.
Yeah. No, well, I'm not ready for a long. Thank you.
It wouldn't be a miss to walk, but it would be an event to walk. I assume.
I can prepare.
It'd probably be doable. It would be like you'd arrive like after lunch if you set out now. Would be my
wouldn't want to.
expectation.
Oh well, I imagine in my current state, it'd be twice as long.
Yeah.
I'll prepare a carriage then. We can head into town and maybe try and I think it's always best in these things to understand the full scope of what's happening, and
I think
What else has happened?
my duty as Reverend would behoove me to call upon Mrs. Copland. Ensure that she is well attended to in such a situation. Fortunate though it is. Is Copland one of the regulars of my church or one of the regulars of Chokes?
One of Chokes.
Okay.
Almost all of these would be Chokes. They are within Tarryford, and they would attend and they're also lower class. They would just attend local church. The exception to that is Mr. Havering. He is a member of your congregation, and he actually is on the other side of town. He makes the journey through Tarryford, past Chokes one to yours.
Amazing. Well, at a minimum, then perhaps if we are in town, I will call upon in order to because I would at least know them to pay some respects. But if Havering is one of my flock, then that somewhat changes the. I will absolutely be attending his estate with the doctor. Is it?
That's tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow evening or tomorrow morning?
Oh, tomorrow morning. Yeah, tomorrow during the day.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do want to call on the doctor at some point once he's done his rounds for the others to see if there's any additional information. For the moment, at least, I wouldn't mind having a chance to see if I can find anything about this sleeping sickness. Although I do think my books might be of more help than just what I have on me right now.
I think perhaps if we're going to look at all of this, it's time to give a little bit more insight. Miss Radcliffe, you're very dear to all of us here. We all have it feels strongly that you should know. There are
just the gentlest of touches on Miss Wentworth's arm, because we both
I think we just covered we just look at each other like.
And the Reverend's like, dear, I know you want to say something in this moment. Say it to me later. Just no, we will discuss this. He's a love-struck fool. Don't worry about it. It was just gentle touch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boston.
I don't know how much of a voice Emma's face has.
May I say that you all have shown me so much kind and, dare I say, affection and hospitality. All of you have.
I know that the. Oh, did you wish to say something?
If you don't mind, Mr. Potterson. But
well,
this
I was
is
just
your
going to
house.
say.
So.
Well, then I suppose I know that the two of you came on quite short notice, and you mentioned your books. I know that Miss Radcliffe wants to spend some time recovering. I would suggest we meet down in Tarryford proper. Then I'll organize a carriage if the two of you want to make what preparations you need to. We'll follow behind. It might take us some time to catch up, and on the trip I can acquaint Miss Radcliffe with everything that happened last year at the incident.
Everything.
I try to do the everything goes grey, but I haven't learnt that trick yet, so it just drifts down to a little
Gotta zone out for a second. Jackson's going. Jackson, back to us. Jackson, back to us.
Perhaps perhaps start with broad strokes, Mr. Potterton, and details are a little complicated, but definitely acquaint Radcliffe with the broad situation.
The work
I
of the
will
veil
say
is complicated.
I will say, Miss Radcliffe, I spoke before about dreams not necessarily meaning all that much. The nature of your dreams and the situation that seems to be occurring may mean that you are involved in something a little more unusual than you would perhaps be used to. It seems there are a few others who are having strange dreams and spending a long time in bed. So
the same sleeping sickness.
I
Simply awful.
indeed, and well, as a member of the cloth, I take it upon myself to care for everyone I can, regardless of whether they are a member of my church or not. In my head, or like just as an aside to Emma, as a like much to the disdain of Reverend Toke. But yes, if you have more to share, and as someone who has experienced this sleeping illness and has recovered from it, I think perhaps your assistance would be most agreeable.
I wrote my dreams down moments ago, and I've totally forgot. But yeah, I have my dreams.
Got a copy.
Thank you.
Do you want to give me a?
And Dave will tell you more about them than I will, because it was kind of a lot.
Yeah. A lot of them have faded from your memory already upon waking. You know, they are dreams.
Oh, thank goodness.
And they slip away. But there's elements that remain. There's dark and distant place. You remember stars peering through trees and these eruptions. Icarus. Yeah. Flora, also, and drinking from the cool pool and the feeling of being hunted. Beyond that, it's really just emotions, and already you find yourself leaning more on the notes you've taken than on the memories themselves, which have kind of drifted back to just a sinister and hunted feeling.
Good. It's good.
My dear, if you would, if you are ready to take your leave, I think perhaps collecting ourselves at the rectory and then making our way into town to meet the good doctor. Your parents are not expecting you home on any time in the near.
Not at all. They've taken a leave of absence from Tarryford for the moment. Memories.
Yes. Well, and I'll offer an arm and. Mr. Potterton, when you are, we will meet you near the good doctor's surgery, if that is agreeable to you.
Excellent. I will make ready. I'll see you there.
All right. The Reverend and Miss Wentworth depart, and as we draw the focus back, what would everyone like to do during the morning? I suppose we will tend to Mr. Potterton and Miss Radcliffe first, given this is their estate. What are the two of you wanted to be doing?
Just making sure, like finding out how strong I am, making sure I'm okay to get around town without face planting.
Yeah. So once Mr. Potterton leaves you to, rest, get dressed, whatever, you kind of stand yourself up and do a proper test. No, you're not pretending to, you're not like putting on sickness, or you're not putting on strength either. This is your. You are weakened. You function would have a penalty dice on any physical activities. However, you can feel yourself as you take in food and things getting stronger. This is not a long-term thing. This is like a for today. Then you'll be a little bit better. Realistically, you should probably rest for the full day. However, you may have things you wish to attend to. You are capable of getting dressed, and if you put a strong face forward, you can look stronger than you are.
All right. Yep. I'll do some stretches, do some jumping jacks, full mobility of the arms, kind of can move around without getting dizzy, can reach the knife under my garter. I think I'm all good.
Okay. All right, fantastic. You also probably do, take in some food, and then go to prepare to depart. Mr. Potterton's estate is not just himself. His father lives here. He's the actual one who runs the whole thing. Mr. Potterton's heir apparent. There is also his elder sister, his two younger sisters, as well as the young twins, who are each 13 years old. You have developed a passing familiarity with each of them. Mr. Potterton is certainly the one who is the closest with you, but all of them treat you not as family, but as a close friend, which you kind of have come to be over these 3 months. You sort of speak highly with them, and all of them are very happy to see you woken. They'll take the time to embrace you, to draw you down, to try and sit you and have a meal with you, before they go about their own days.
Very good.
Gorgeous. George, is there anything you want to be doing in the morning?
I get us ready, but I'm just still thinking about finding George's style really, and I think that it's a little bit wannabe like cut rate Bruce Wayne, I think. He's even still got one parent, and definitely doesn't have all of the bits and bobs. But I sweep out of the room once I've done the bit, go for a set of double doors, but they don't properly open, so I have to slip past. And ready a carriage. I've got like a really nice horse that is probably like a cavalry horse that I purchased, which I like hook up to the carriage, which is you really shouldn't be doing. But I'm like, in case we need to, quickly make a whatever.
Is it the same horse that Lord Northlake lent to Captain Stone for the party? Did you buy that horse?
I probably put in a look.
Their estate is probably downsized a little bit, and absolutely, they're still plenty wealthy, but they have no need for a charger. And you, again, to clarify, are very wealthy. This is absolutely within your means.
I've probably, like, because as I said, I've been getting into trying to train myself. I've probably got even like a little cut rate Batcave lair thing kind of going on, not as in like a literal thing of operations, but a training space. And whatever heroic montage is in a superhero movie of them doing like the salmon crawl or whatever, I can't do. But I've got all the bits to do it. I'm just trying. I'm getting there. I've got like a set of exercises I'm meant to do every day, and there's lots of crossed out days because I just can't. I'm too tired at the end of banking. But I'll ready the horses. I get some equipment together, and I start to like put together this incredibly like dry and factual rundown of everything that happened at the party.
Well, yeah, that's probably the thing of most note is what are you sharing to what extremes. Now, you never went into the dark realm yourself, but you saw a true monster. And you have since been clued in by Reverend Jennings and Miss Wentworth as to the rest of the events as kind of a member of this closer order. What are you passing along to Miss Radcliffe?
So I think from my perspective, we
and know that again, this under the whole like guise of etiquette, you're gonna sound mad. Miss Radcliffe's like will really struggle to buy any of this.
I completely
anything beyond
follow.
Big Dog will not compute.
I think that first of all, I'm hoping that the connection I feel with Miss Radcliffe is going to carry us through this conversation. But additionally, I see what happened as so heroic that, anyone, when they hear the full story, are just going to be taken away by the reality of it. Because I think from my perspective, I was with Lady Eliza. We were set upon by this beast. We hid, and we are rescued by Captain Stone, who then takes us back and defeats another one of these creatures in single combat and leads a doomed charge with like a very notable lord into the breach, and the only person who returns is the sort of priest stained with blood as everyone died, but they succeeded and they did it. So I think to me it's like that's kind of the duty of.
Do you mention that as like they went into the gardens, or do you try and do a bit of like a beyond words? And by beast, do you just leave it to like really big wolf, or like in that vein, or are you saying any concrete? Are you ever looking at Miss Radcliffe and saying like we saw one of the devil's creatures and it crept between realms?
I think I am at this point. I think I intend to, and maybe I will suddenly backtrack if something goes terribly amiss in the way that she reacts to it. But in my head, I think that I'm convinced that the inflamed passion of this speech is going to get through to her, and because she's seen visions, she must know the truth of all what I'm going to say.
Okay. Miss Radcliffe, how do you think you react?
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
My instinct would be he sounds mad. This is a long way. This is a big drop. Now, you might have seeded some of this over the last few months, but this is, at the end of the day, Miss Radcliffe is still a guest and traveling nobility, genuinely to the point that you're probably going to take a reputation hit to this, Mr. Potterton.
Totally fair
Because
enough.
this is beginning and somehow this will get out that Mr. Potterton is, because also if you go this far with Miss Radcliffe, he's possibly done it with others. You are a person who talks about mad things.
I kind of like the idea that George is probably not keeping things as close to the chest as he should be.
Yeah,
with
no,
this,
100%.
But yeah. I think that he is still corpus mentis enough, though, obviously, to be able to kind of notice and try and salvage a situation if he sees it going wrong. So I'm happy to, like, if you...
So I would say this probably actually, rather than falling to your role, Jackson, this falls to you to, if you are willing to coax this out of him and kind of like oversell your interest and belief. So how, I guess, genuinely, how does Miss Radcliffe react?
I think so. If this is going to work out long term, I got to know kind of what his deal is now. You know, I gotta let myself. You gotta go all the way around the house before you buy it. You know what I mean? Like, you get the building inspection done. You look under the floorboards for termite activity, and then you make an informed decision once you've seen the whole place.
Okay.
Right.
We are gonna do it. We're gonna do a couple rolls here. Mr. Radcliffe, I think I'd like you to make a psychology roll first of all to see just how, like, peer into Mr. Potterton's mind. Yeah, on the surface, he does seem to believe that there is something beyond this. He has a great faith in Reverend Jennings. You saw the quiet word he had with Dr. Parsons. This is all a bit far-fetched, but they did experience something. That said, you've had no such experiences, and already with that dream fading, I don't see any particular reason why you might believe him, at least the details. Would you like to make a fast talk roll to try and sell your, basically, like, buying into this and secure?
Yeah, I don't think I disbelieve him yet. Even though I don't believe him. Like, if it was just on his own, I'd probably, like, dismiss him out of hand. But because I had the dream, even with the successful sanity check, and the fact that the other two were kind of into it, and I picked up on this history there. Yeah, even if I don't believe all of the supernatural stuff, I do believe that something happened.
I don't think in that case I don't. Yeah, perfect. In that case, I don't think it needs a roll there. Yeah, you can take him at some level of face value. He is talking of incredible things. That said, you are a little familiar with the goings on in towns. You know that the North Lakes, you're kind of, everyone talks to them in past tense, like, as this amazing, like, you've never seen them. You've probably gone to church a couple times, Mr. Poston. No presents from them. You've taken a ride past their estate once, and while it is a grand and you know, what would have once been a lively place, it now seems quite dour. And certainly something happened at the ball. You've talked about it a bit in town, and people seem to be not super willing to go into details. There's something certainly happened, and it seems Mr. Potterton and his comrades were involved.
Adding a little more flavor to it. I also think that once the floodgates kind of open, I just start I lose track a bit of and just start kind of getting a lot out. I think that in a way as well, George really doesn't have a good connection point to vent to people at the minute about this stuff. Of the people who know what happened, he was the only one who didn't go into the realm, you know, so he is kind of apart from it. He's no longer in contact with Lady Eliza because her father died and they've withdrawn from society. He has a strained relationship with his father because his father is not fulfilling the role of the family, and therefore it's altered his relationship with his siblings. He needs someone.
Yeah, genuinely. I mean, like,
what I'm hearing is he needs a therapist, and Jane's the closest thing he's got right now.
Yeah, exactly, basically. I think that on probably Reverend, there's a little bit of, I'm still trying to I need to impress you because I feel that you're connected to these stories, whereas
there's a formality is. Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, you're right, Reverend. I'm sorry. He needs a live-in therapist. Change the closest thing he's got right now.
He needs a friend as well, genuinely, like, just a personal person.
As the first woman who's been nice to me recently, I immediately trauma dump everything
and fall in love. Yeah, fantastic.
That's how it's done. It was the style of the time.
Yeah, and you're exactly right about, like, your like, status at home as you're loading up your carriage with equipment, probably more than you're ever going to need for what is functionally a day trip. You can see your elder sister is going about and caring for the younger ones. The two twins are arguing about who was sneaking out at night, sort of trying to cast the blame back and forth between themselves. Your younger sister, Susan, I believe it was, is going into town again to presumably meet with, like her friends or some young man. It's a little bit untoward, but honestly, as long as the family is out there socializing. And genuinely, your interest in Miss Radcliffe and vice versa being possibly reciprocated are encouraged immensely by the family. They are constantly finding chances for the two of you to be alone, and they are giving you the space to develop a relationship. They are very interested in seeing this family continue, and this is the best chance they've gotten since Miss Elizabeth, who has, as you said, retreated.
Can I ask one question just to flesh out my family? One detail more. Notably, there is also a Charles Potterton.
That's the young twins. Yeah.
How's he looking for accounts? How's he looking as a head of family if something should happen to me? Like a snacky monster.
Not great. They're each 13, just gone teenagers. They get into trouble a fair bit, and they are basically inseparable. He would be the one to inherit should you perish, and that would put the family in a very dire situation. He was basically raised without parents. You had your father and your mother for a short time and your elder sister's attention. By this point, she's now as focused on finding marriage proposals. She is trying, but honestly, there's a bandwidth that this many kids is too damn many.
Yeah.
They're a little bit feral, the two youngest. Just the tiniest bit.
Yeah, my mother died and therefore father retreated when I was 14, so he's got a year to get his head on straight.
Yeah. All right. We'll leave the two of you preparing to depart and return to the Reverend and his betrothed, Miss Wentworth, who have returned to the chapel, and you have the morning.
I think we should offer tea here after we meet with Mr. Potterton and Miss Jane. I think I have the feeling she'll be exhausted by her trip to town and will not say so. She definitely gives off that impression where she likes to appear stronger than she perhaps is, especially after the illness. I think we should offer tea here, afternoon tea.
Yes, of course. That is a very sensible suggestion. Yes, I will ask. I will ask Hill to organize it. Hill being the housekeeper. I probably have a housekeeper, maybe someone, maybe someone.
Yeah, absolutely. There'd be people that assist with the church and setting out the books and things. You lead the services. Someone would actually tend to it, and they may. And then, if you wish, it could be a separate person or the same who also helps around the house.
Yeah, there'd be a housekeeper, cook person.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd probably have my own maid.
Yeah, genuinely who travels with. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Hill, I will say, is the housekeeper cook, specifically for my the place where I live, separate to things. And then there's people who, although I'm not fancy enough to have lots of people help. I do a lot of that stuff myself.
Yeah.
In terms of setting out things ready for sermons.
I may have actually, if you've got if the actual living quarters for you are large enough, I may have actually asked if some of my house staff would have moved to the.
You can't live together. Yeah,
no, but I'll have my maid with me, and it's kind of just because it's in town rather than being out in this big house all on my own.
Yeah, I mean the rectory is outside of town. It is its own sort of separate thing. However, I would say it's big enough to have a guest room, which you and your maid absolutely stay. So in terms of it being proper, you're in a different part of the house, you are in the guest part of the house. It is odd, but in this situation not completely unreasonable, given that you want to be near town and your parents don't. So it's a known arrangement that's a bit odd, but everyone's kind of fine with it.
But under the circumstances, both of us have pretty good reputations. You're literally the Reverend.
Yeah.
And you know, it's that, or Emma stays at a big country house alone because her parents are rarely in town.
Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah.
Quick question, just because I'm sort of interested. Do you think that there was ever a push from the Dutchman to try and get your hand, either by your parents or anything like that? Just as a point.
This was Georgiana's
I think my
betrothed.
parents. I think that might have been part of the impetus. Like, of Emma may have said something to the Reverend, like this. You know, they're going to try and marry me off to this Dutchman. I don't want to. I want to stay here. I need to fix this. And it would have been like, okay, let's just get this rolling before anybody can send a letter.
Yeah. And again, like, the unspoken part of the agreement is, should you stumble across someone that, you know, within the time that we have before it becomes awkward that we're not yet married, like, that it's very much, this is so that you can stay in town and or stay near a town and you have a base to exist from where you're not going to get, like, overly judged or questioned. But
and our goals are currently in alignment of this thing.
I don't think Samuel is kidding himself in that, you know, like, Emma's particularly interested in him, and, you know, I think he wants what's best for her. He wants to help her, but if that is to provide a base of operations, great. If that is to be a temporary, like, shield from stuff, great. Whatever it is, yeah, that's the relationship as it stands.
Temporary.
I think it makes sense then for there to be at least just enough space at the rectory for Emma and
I think it's like,
and a house servant.
It's a nice area, yeah.
Housekeeper, maid, person, as appropriate.
Mutually beneficial.
We've got the resources to host a couple for tea.
Yeah, easily.
Yes, absolutely.
Easily.
There's I'll ensure that Hill prepares tea in the drawing room for when we return.
Wonderful. Miss Jane's notes on her dreams, and I'll take them out of my bag that I've got with that I provided writing materials for her. I will have taken those, and I'll pass them on to you now. Miss Jane's notes. They're sketchy, but it looks like the details were starting to fade. But there's still quite a lot in there, and well, I certainly recognize some of it, and you might as well.
Yes.
At least the tone and the tenor of it.
Indeed. Do you wish to assist with the research, or are you planning to take a small break to hunt?
I will assist the housekeeper with getting everything ready for tea, and then yes, I'm going to go shooting.
Yes, indeed. Miss Wentworth. I hope it goes well. I hope you...
Lately? Better than ever. Better and better each time, actually. You should see me with the targets, when they throw up the little bits of pottery, the pottery chickens.
Oh, the clays.
That's the one. I always forget the name of it, but no, I'm getting quite good at those. I'm still terrible at riding. I'm still terrible on horseback, but with 2 feet on the ground, I can hit the clays more times than not.
Oh, you were referring to shooting off horseback. I was going to say I'm not particularly good at horses altogether. They're sort of... I can't really read them particularly well. They seem beautifully docile, and then they sort of walk towards you when you realise that they're enormous. And
ah, well, they know. See, they know when you're afraid.
Yes, I rather think they do. Well, enjoy hunting, and yes, I wouldn't ever want to impose, but I would like to see the improvement, if you'd be willing to show me at some point. I'm
absolutely. Join me if your research doesn't take too long. Feel free to join me.
Oh, yes. I'm not
given where the rectory is, it stands to reason that there'd be ample places around near the woods. We're near the woods, near kind of the edge. There's like a green patch just near the rectory. So I think you could have
come to an arrangement with Elizabeth to be allowed to hunt on her grounds that still stands.
It probably reassures her somewhat. We may even do it together.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that Jameson has the everything is in order and neat and tidy and oiled.
Wonderful. You know, I wonder if George is actually any good at that stuff with the captain used to be so fabulous at, with the rifles and the shotguns and the cleaning of the weapons, because I do find that sometimes it sticks a little bit on the second shot of the shotgun, and I would like for somebody who has had a little bit more time around the weapons to have a look at it. But sometimes I do wonder if George, he has the right words to say, but I'm not entirely sure if well, you know.
Well, if he is at all lacking in that department, I suspect it's not through lack of trying. He does seem to throw himself wholeheartedly into that side of things.
You've definitely seen him more than capable with a saber, although the rifle has yet to be untested. So you have the morning. You can arrange for tea to be sent, and then you have some time to tend to personal matters. Reverend, I understand you want to throw yourself into some research, looking at these notes and trying to draw some conclusions. And Miss Wentworth, you're going to take yourself hunting, sort of just take a break from the area.
Probably to the clays. Probably stroll around to the North House to shoot some clays.
Perfect. That's great. Reverend Jennings, what conclusions are you looking to draw? Looking over the notes from Miss Radcliffe, you find some unnerving similarities. This, to your mind, rings as more than just a dream. Certainly, that and the strange sickness, the time of year, it's uncomfortable. You can't help but be concerned that 100 years might come sooner. I mean, the references she makes to a dark place, distant stars. Sure, that's already true enough, but to speak of gems she finds at her feet it's too close. It almost makes you think that she's spoken with someone about this or heard a conclusion, but she definitely said it in her sleep. However, there are also some separate things. The trees of Ica, no similarity to the place you were, and the being hunted from things in the tree line, that seems a little different as well, although there definitely were monsters in that place.
I think I'm taking what I know about the similarities and then like looking into why, like what the differences could mean, whether we're talking about somewhere. If I think about like the Earth, you know, there are places that are like continents or countries that are near to each other that have similarities because of their proximity, but are still different. Like things change over distances. You get plants in one place that you might not get in another, even though like the peoples are similar, or the, like, you know, sand is pretty universal, but you know what it's made out of and what the, you know, flora and fauna is of the area tells you that you're in a different place. So trying to like use a little bit of like the natural philosophy style of things, or the sort of like just knowing about the world.
Okay.
And trying to draw some conclusions or like find more about what this is. Is this the same place? Is it a different place in the same like realm? Does this give me any more information that I can piece together what realm this might be? You know, is it deepest, darkest Peru, or is it an alternate dimension? Who knows?
You're definitely you're running on very little information for the time being, and this goes beyond the scope of your own notes. But if you'd like to go ahead and give me natural philosophy is one approach, occult would be another, and finally the one with the most information behind it is the Cthulhu mythos skill.
Do it.
But this, of course, carries the most risk of trying to look into this early.
I think for the moment it is occult.
Okay.
I have been throwing myself into looking into the esoteric outside of what is presented in the Christian Bible. It is still very much a like I'm still a religious person.
Yeah.
But I have come to understand that there is more to the world than just what is written in the books that I have at my disposal from the church. I don't think I've drawn any conclusions as to why that might be, but just outside of that. So we'll try a cult. We'll see what
but
happens.
before you roll, so you're gonna okay. Well then, you're gonna need a hard success to get any real information from this. Looking over your own notes, if you take a lot of time, more than the morning will allow you, you can take a bonus dice on this. You do have your own libraries and things, but you can try that another time. On just a preliminary scan, you can find the obvious similarities, but nothing more. The only thing I'm going to note is that when you traveled through that world, and you kind of, as you're sitting at your study, a mug of tea going cold next to you and notes fanned out behind you, you find yourself relying less on them and more of your memory. You're cast back to that North Lake Ball. You can almost hear the haunting instruments muffled by the rooms around you. And you recall following Miss Georgiana through the void and finding that if you twisted yourself a little further, you might slip into unknown worlds. There is not just one space beyond Tarryford. There are countless, and perhaps this is just one of the others. Still, the timing is curious, the similarities are too many, and you can't shake it from your mind. More research needs to be.
I think I remember the feeling of knowing that there were other places to go, and there's a real sudden curiosity and desire to find out that he just goes, no.
Yeah.
Not right now.
We'll get there.
Let's not, because there is, he fully squashes the desire to reach into that, which is essentially squashing his desire to look into the Cthulhu mythos directly.
Yeah.
That curiosity is there, but he's been reticent to push into that too much, because it's so far. He's trying to find mundane explanations before he concludes that it's purely unknown, because pushing into the occult suggests that there might be other things in this world that explain what's happening.
Well, at the
not
very
necessarily
least,
that it needs to be a different world.
At the very least, things seem to be tied somehow to Tarryford. So perhaps if you look into that closer, you can find something. All the same, by the time you rouse yourself from your study, the sun is high, and was it Hill or Hall?
Hill, because I stole it from Jane Austen and the Bennetts. So Hill is the housekeeper, and Jameson is the groundskeeper that helps to maintain the weapons. Perfect. To make sure that they're ready for shooting, so that Miss Wentworth, while she has I have given Jameson full if Miss Wentworth asks how to maintain the weapons, you will show her how, but please make sure they're maintained if she does not have time to do it, or if to ensure that it's safe.
By the time you rouse yourself from, there's a quiet hand on your shoulder, knowing not to disturb you while you're studying, and Hill tells you that Miss Emma will be returning soon and that the carriage is ready to take you into town.
Thank you, Hill. Yes. Hill.
Yes?
Do you have, family?
Some in Tarryford, yes?
I'm struggling a little, on what an appropriate, gift might be, in memorandum. You understand my meaning?
I was
do. Wondering if you had
for someone who's passed, or for someone who's currently ill?
For someone who's passed.
Oh, well, I suppose flowers are always nice. There's the blacksmiths. They've done fine work. I've seen them carve ornaments and things that last a little longer, if that's more you're thinking.
Yes.
There's the masons. I know they're capable of stone, and they could chip away something.
Indeed. Thank you, Hill. That will be all.
My pleasure. The carriage is ready, and he steps away. Elsewhere, Miss Wentworth, you've taken... Oop, that's not me. Miss Wentworth, you've taken one of the horses out into the surrounding area and headed towards the North Lake Estate to do some clay shooting or some hunting.
Probably walked. I'm not good on horses.
Even better. Then, with a rifle slung over your shoulder, somewhat unwomanly, but who's going to be critical of you? You've made your way around one of the large lakes and into the forest that surrounds it. You have proven yourself a capable shot, and in the past you've leveled a buck or two, taken shot at winged birds. Are you just looking to clear your mind as you do this? Yeah, it's
pretty much. I can get away with most things just by being extremely friendly to everybody who I meet, and it seems to have worked rather well with Jane. But it's been a year since my sister died, so today is definitely a head clearing day. Make loud bang noises.
Yeah, you kind of lose yourself in
Make gun go boom.
You lose yourself in the scent of spent powder and the activity of hunting. This a year ago, almost to the day, was when you returned to Tarryford, having been away for a time, and in only a few days, the North Lakes held their ball. You find yourself almost subconsciously heading towards the hall where it all happened, and soon it's in the distance, and you don't know if you want to go closer to find comfort or sort of poke at the wound a little and see what festers underneath. As you do so, you will notice something. The North Lake Estate had fallen into, not disrepair, but had definitely retreated from society since the Lord passed. You know that Lady Lydia was seeking a husband for Miss Elizabeth, and you also know that it has since passed into the inheritance of some distant cousins, traveling down another male line so that an heir can be found. There are carriages there. You haven't been here in a little while. It would have been a month or so since you've been here, and in that time, more parties have come to the North Lake Estate and have made themselves at home. You can't see anyone from this distance, but it looks as though it is in the process of being revived somewhat, and you actually think you can see a small figure in a white dress moving through the gardens that you believe to be Miss Elizabeth. She seems to be just making her way winding through the area.
Yeah, I'll go say hi.
Okay.
I think I've been using their clays, and I've been... Elizabeth and I don't really talk much anymore, but we probably spend a bit of time together.
You're childhood friends, right?
We were,
go way back.
And it was really Emma who was pushing the impetus to actually act in the last scenario with Elizabeth's in danger. So they're comfortable in each other's presence, but they obviously do not talk, because what else is there to talk about except the terrible, horrible thing? So they don't really speak to each other, but they exist in comfortable silence pretty regularly, I think, because otherwise it's an opportunity, I think, for Elizabeth to leave the house, be with other people, so that her family don't kind of put too much more pressure on her to do that in a way that, with somebody who understands but isn't going to talk.
Yeah, can I ask you to make a slightly retroactive charm check? And this is just for kind of maintaining this friendship throughout the past year.
Oh.
I want to see what state it's in.
I'm having some real bad rolls today.
We're
having a very Alex morning.
It's not critical, but basically Elizabeth has retreated from society and somewhat from you, basically.
Yes.
There's still that connection there, but she hasn't sought you out directly and does seem to have gone more inward than seek assistance outward. As you shoulder the rifle and make your way through the trees, you are aware that you don't have much time, as by the time basically you get there, you'll need to turn around and leave. But you pick your way through towards the outskirts of the gardens and find yourself standing not so far from the morgue where all of this happened. Now, you weren't present when the monster was there, but you heard about the events of Captain Stone's heroics. And you can see just in the distance, Miss Elizabeth has seated herself on a stone bench and is gazing into a very serene and mirror-sheen pond, in which she's holding a rock and seems to be almost contemplating tossing it forward to break the surface. She has not noticed your approach.
I'll go up to her.
She still seems
look
not
at the
to
sun
notice
in
you.
the sky. I know I don't have much time, but I'll kind of like circle around so that she can see me coming, rather than creep. I don't like creeping up behind
She does
people
seem very out of like not noticing. She's very in her own world, but you make it point to like you like kind of kick a couple rocks and things to approach.
Yeah.
And she looks up, not with a start, sort of like a slow blink, and then when she sees you, there's a pause and then a smile breaks her face. She's just, Emma, what a surprise! I haven't seen you
Eliza.
God, it must be months, I think. Come here, embrace me. And she will take your hands and then pull you into a hug.
And it's a little bit odd because we often don't really talk.
No, you don't.
But you know, it's great.
As she pulls you away, she looks at you and she
great.
says,
Hi.
You've been shooting.
Yes, I do that. I find myself doing that quite a lot lately, if I'm being honest.
Strange. It's a hobby that never took my attention, and I always remembered you more interested in your fabrics, but you've found something to occupy yourself. How wonderful.
It's nice to get outdoors, I think.
Yes, it is,
At
I
least
think.
until it starts raining again. But no, I found it occupies my mind.
I found myself seeking time in the gardens more and more of late, but I think you're right. It seems that summer's coming and the rains are fewer and more far between. I feel I should apologize. I feel it's been a time since I've reached out to you, and I forget myself sometimes that although it's been a little while, you are newer here, and you might have needed a friend as much as I have.
That is true, and it's. I mean, you may have heard the Reverend and I are engaged, and he has been a wonderful.
I had not. I had not heard.
Yes, we.
I'm so glad for you.
About a year ago, just under a year ago, actually. But we were obviously taking our time with the engagement for.
Oh, but you must have me over, or perhaps you can come here. My cousins are here and staying. Robert and Diana Northlake. They're distant, but connected through to my great grandfather. It's to them that the estate will fall, but they're finding busy work for me and finding means by which I can stay here and continue our connection. They're helping my mother look for a husband for me as well, and I'm hopeful that this year will be all the finer than the last.
I have no doubt of that. It can really only get better, can't it?
Truly it can. It's been good of late, I think. I find myself...
I'm glad.
It seems strange, but it's... When you speak it, when you say things are well, it feels as though the clouds will return, but I want to believe it. I want things to be well. Mother's returning soon, and my grandmother, Lady Emma's been in finer spirits and truer mind than she has in some time. I think I shall speak it. Things are well, Emma. Things are very well indeed.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. I've been wanting to drop around and ask after you and make sure everything is going okay for you. It's been a tough year, and I'm glad things are looking up for you.
They are. Listen,
but yes,
do you have...
If you need a friend, a female friend who is not a relative, however distant, I'm in the rectory quite often,
yes.
rather than going out to the country. It's such a bore.
Of course,
but I've been in the rectory quite often with the good Reverend, so I'm close by.
Well, listen, consider the offer standing. If you wish, I can introduce you to my cousins now. I don't know where they are exactly. They throw themselves into their work an awful lot. Perhaps...
What is it that they do?
Oh, well, they're quite learned. They were a banker, I believe. My cousin Robert, and Diana was a woman of some interests. Your sister would have gotten on with her awfully well, I think. It's a shame they... Well.
Yes.
Listen, perhaps I'll organize with them to send a letter to the Reverend, and you could come and join us for dinner.
That would be magnificent, yes.
Grand. Well, listen, I'll allow you to return to your grand hunt. Perhaps you'll fell a white stag or something similar?
Oh, this time of year, not likely.
Yes, well, all the same. Best of luck, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much for visiting.
It's wonderful to see you, Eliza. I truly mean that, and it's so good to see you in much improved spirits and health.
And on a day like this, not a cloud in sight.
Good afternoon.
Good
I'm
afternoon.
going to stroll back across to the rectory, which is right behind North Lakes Manor. So
Yeah, you
nice and close.
turn yourself away, and as you're like retreating through the tree lines, you look back and you will see that Miss Emma has returned to the seat and is staring once more into the pond. The pebble still unthrown in her hand, but her legs are swinging a little bit. Like there is a positive energy to it, and she's not wrong. There is not a cloud in sight.
It's
It is a
beautiful day.
gorgeous summer day. Right.
Was her kind of effusive joy at seeing me a little bit odd, given that, you know, the times that we have kind of walked quietly together, it's been almost strained.
Yeah.
Because I haven't really been able to maintain that friendship with her.
Go ahead and give me a psychology
Just
roll.
a little bit weird.
Give me a psychology roll, but even on the surface, it does seem, yeah, your instinct would be she was kind of quite depressed, and she is coming out of that and overcompensating, possibly to an unhealthy degree, but in general, it's definitely a positive turn from what you saw before, and it did seem to be fairly genuine. You can't see much more beyond the surface there, but all right. By the time you return, a carriage will be summoned, and the Reverend Jennings roused from his study. Elsewhere, Miss Radcliffe and George Potterton step into the bat carriage and tear into Tarryford. All of you will arrive with high sun as it approaches lunchtime, and you are in the bustling streets of this not insignificant town. It is like regular trade being done. This would be a weekday. Thursday, we'll call it. There are people coming and going, seeing about their occupations, and in general, it is the lower class, or the sort of middle, the working folk that are through here. Mr. Potterton, you've been in here to, like, pick up a suit, to get your sizing done at, there's the person in town who, like, does the tailors and things. Beyond that, you would have little reason to be in here. Honestly, that extends to all three of you. You are of a class higher. Miss Radcliffe, you have traveled through here, although when you've done so, it's probably not in this fine clothes.
I was just going to say, if there's a chance to, when we step out of the carriage before the other two meet up with us,
yeah,
I should like to state my intentions to Mr. Potterton.
Certainly. Do the two of you pull up outside the surgery, or where are you heading? That was the place where you're all going to meet.
I think the surgery seems sensible.
Okay.
Well, I think before that, Mr. Potterton, if you don't mind, I wonder if you would do me the immense favor of popping by the apothecary just since we have some time before the others arrive at the surgery. I should think, well, some kind of tincture may do me some good, although I fear the apothecary building itself may not, with the fumes and the smells and so forth. Though the fresh air is doing me wonders moment by moment. If you would indulge me a short stroll in town just to feel the wind in my sails again, I'd be most appreciative if you could run that errand for me.
Certainly, I can do that at once past Carlton's. That sounds fine. If you're doing anything remotely that doesn't like resemble cold shouldering me after I've vented every detail, I will be in your thrall.
Excellent. No, yes, just a well, after our rousing discussion, I think a walk in the fresh air would do me much good in there as well.
Okay.
Wonderful. Then, okay, and I'll turn and, so head directly towards the apothecary.
I believe that no one's paying a lot of attention to me. I should like to head off to the Four Feathers Tavern.
Okay. So Mr. Potterton, you're going to continue on towards the surgery. Miss Radcliffe, you're going to be dropped off in front of the apothecary to attend to your personal business, and walking, that will work perfectly because the Four Feathers is basically right in between the two. If you want to sell this, you could genuinely step in, buy a tincture, and just walk via.
My understanding was I'd been sent to the apothecary to pick up something.
Exactly so.
Oh, misunderstood. Yeah. Okay, you're being sent to the apothecary.
While I go for a walk elsewhere.
I see. My misunderstanding. In that case, Mr. Potterton, you step inside the apothecary. You have not been inside this before. This is cut. You would just go straight to the surgery and the doctors, but you can assess the wares and try and find what you want. We can step back to you. Meanwhile, Miss Radcliffe, you take a turn in the town. You are dressed in reasonably fine garments. They make you stand out a little bit as you travel through. You are dressed as a noble.
Which is why I should probably slip into an alley around the back of the kind of main street and find my way to the back of the tavern.
Okay. You sort of duck around a side alley and slipping through them, stepping your way around like muck and broken barrels and things, but dexterously and seeming not out of comfort. You arrive at the rear of the Four Feathers Tavern.
And with a practiced arm, I should like to pick up a pebble and throw it at the third window from the left.
You reach it up and hoist it, and it lances against the glass and falls back down into the mud. And for a moment, you'll need to wait. The Four Feathers Tavern is a two-story building with a sort of like squat demeanor. It's settled here for quite a long time and is functionally the center of Tarryford. It gets regular people staying there overnight and also people that come in for a drink during the day or for lunch, dinner, things of the sort. It is currently attended to by a not insignificant number of people, and there's a sort of like a rowdy sounds coming from inside. After a moment, the window that you land the pebble against opens, and you see a sour-faced man staring out. He has a thick and sort of like coarse beard. His hair is wetted and sort of curled down on both sides, combed into place. And you can see a nasty sort of like scabrous wound on one cheek that looks regularly picked at. He glances down at you, holds a hand up indicating one moment, and then vanishes back inside. After a few brief seconds, the door to the rear opens and he steps out looking both ways and then walks towards you, stalking threateningly as he approaches, and you can't help but feel the instinct, whether you suppress it or otherwise, to take a half step back.
Still alive?
You better have a
sell my
good
inheritance yet, did you?
You better have a good reason why you didn't make yourself known. I've been in there for 3 days waiting for you, Molly.
Yeah, and I've been on my bleeding back for 3 days, Arthur. What are you going to make of it? I nearly died, you know.
Nearly died. Nearly died in the company of the fair Pottertons. I find that hard to believe. Where were you? Why couldn't you meet?
I was out of it, mate. I was out of it. Fever high. Dreams like you never believe. There's a sickness going around.
If you're
Wouldn't be surprised if you hadn't heard of anyone else.
If you're gonna lie to be Mole, I'll hit you. I'll hit you where he won't see it. You'll continue this ruse, and then you'll get me my fucking money.
How's Tavern Keeper doing? Heard he was a bit poorly. Still alive? Seen him around?
What have you got to do with that?
Same thing he had.
Like
I said, I was on my back. And I'm only just walking around again. So I'll thank you to back off and give me some breathing room, or else you might catch it too.
What are you working? You with the apothecary? You moving poisons?
No, mate, I just got sick, didn't I? But I'm back on the job now, and we're gonna get it done.
Listen, I can't buy much more time for you. You want to do this soft? We'll do it soft.
Yeah, I want to do it soft.
Well, you've got 2 days. Understand? 2 days, then we do it my way. All right? The twins are young. We'll grab them while they're playing outside, spirit them into the woods, and then a keenly written letter will find us our funds. Worst case, we send a finger or two.
You're just making things harder than they have to be. Just in 2 days, mate, I can tell you where all of the money's hidden, where all of the safes are, where all the fanciest artwork is. All right, we do it soft. We get out of there with no much more fuss.
2 days for soft, 3 days for hard. Am I clear?
I'll see you day after tomorrow, all right?
And Mole, and he reaches out and grabs you. Don't forget where you came from. And he takes the side of your dress and just rips a section of the hem, so it no longer looks quite so neat.
Word. Crimes against fashion. We hate them.
I'll just glare at him until he leaves.
You want to give me an intimidation roll?
Ooh.
Hell yeah.
And feel free to tinker the sheet. Your brother is a bully. He is and he is your elder. He's always used fear to control you.
I think if I can move some like points away from charm and rely on
swing 'em
acting
around.
when you would ask me to make a charm roll, because I happen to have quite a good
100%,
acting skill.
100%. Fast talk too.
Happens.
Fast talk. You can also tinker around too for the acting.
Oh, of course, yeah. I might do that. All right, let's. I think we'll need more intimidate than charm and fast talk. So if I move 30 points over there, I'll bring it up to 15 intimidate if I may be so bold.
Go for it.
Thank you. No.
I think that's the standpoint. He like hawks a huge glob of spit in his mouth, picks at the scab and spits it down on the ground. He's not moving until you are. I run them. Oh, they're mine. You just work for us. Now do the job.
Yeah, I'll do the job for you. Do the job for you you couldn't do without me. Don't worry. I'll get it done.
Soft. And once you
I'm out
leave,
of there.
he heads back into the tavern, and you make your way back towards Mr. George Potterton, who's currently walking into the apothecary, taking in the rather fine tinctures. Brief context, just because it's in the book and it's neat, apothecaries are kind of like, they're like snake oil salesmen even then. Like, it's where you go because you don't have the money to go to a real doctor, so you get some like tinctures and this and that. It's a roll of the dice. It will do nothing most of the time, it will heal you some of the time, and the remainder, it will make it worse because it's basically poison. The gentleman who runs it is relatively learned and is trying to bring a bit more like science into the profession, but it's still not somewhere you would have been many times, George. That said, you can probably what is it that you're asking for?
I was perfectly ready to basically just be scammed. I think I kind of came in and was like, but just thinking of potentially interesting things. Completely happy for this not to be an angle. My father is notably a little bit mad.
Yeah.
But is it potentially possible that like he's taken a habit to tinctures or something like that?
Yeah, hell yeah.
He could be. So I will insert a whole thing. Maybe I don't like this guy because I know that my father's been doing that. Or maybe if you'll let me make like a psychology roll or something, I could get an angle on that. Otherwise, I'm just happy to be fleeced.
No, I love that. I think it's a kind of a two-way fleecing though. Your family has racked up quite the most of nobility would work on accounts. You don't move currency. You just have an open tab with him. And the number's getting pretty high because your father comes in to basically spend what, like your finances are getting a little thin. You've got currency still at home, but you've got tabs that are opening. And as you go inside, there's a little bit of you're closer to the same level than you should be because of the growing tab that they could call in. And if they went to call it in on you, that would be like pretty severe to your reputation. It's basically them saying, we don't trust that you're good for this money. We want cash now. So they've been starting to kind of mention that they will do so.
That sounds great. I think because I'm genuinely okay at accounts. I think we have the money, but like you said, if someone calls, it's the fact that someone had to ask.
It's super rude. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
You can go in. What is it? You can pick up like a regular shipment for your father's, and you can get something for Miss Radcliffe.
Yeah, I think that maybe there's a delivery that my father would have had to pick up, and then I say if you have someone I'm taking on a tour through the town, a young lady who has a mote of queasiness and dizziness, and if you have anything that would fortify her spirits.
Yes, certainly. Here's some elixirs that we can find. The sort of middle-aged man, Mr. Peter Carlton, will find his way back to the room, mix some oils and elixirs, bits of stone and twig, shake them around, and for us, what you're fairly aware is just clear drinking water, will return it placed before you and mention some relatively outrageous sum. Now, it's more than within your spending money, but typically that would just get added to the tab. But he seems to be just going like, and that is the amount.
I think that now is probably a good time to try and do a little softening of that threat of a debt being called in, can I very happily pay it and then make a charm roll to just kind of set at ease the whole thing and like restart that clock on how long I have?
Absolutely. Would you like to make an accounting roll instead?
My charm and my accounting are actually the same. I took some points in charm because I figured George can actually
it is
put on the...
totally your choice then, depending on your strategy.
Excellent. I'll make it. I'm just trying to be nice.
In that case, go ahead and do it with a bonus dice, actually, because we'll factor in the accounting that's being at play here. Like, you are able to move things around and do so.
Excellent. All right. So that's already a success, and with a bonus die, it actually goes down to
I think that's
just a hard success on extreme.
Gorgeous. Yeah, like you said, you're quite charming, and you are the social superior in this circumstance. You actually would have had the bonus dice already because you are considered a well-to-do person. You are I think it's a tribute to the ton or something is the term. So yes, you're able to kind of smooth that over, and as you pass it across, he will say, I hope this helps your father. He'll also mention with that success, is this... he's been delivering a few more tinctures of late to people who have been falling asleep. He recognizes some of the things. He possibly even has heard the rumors. He's plugged enough in that he's heard the rumors of people falling asleep. And he's kind of got some stuff ready to go.
I say, yeah, well, we were worried it was, but fortunately, the young lady has woken. So...
Let's benefit. Might I ask what she was given?
We had scarcely called for a doctor before she woke of her own accord. So given very little, unless perhaps one of the staff at my house took it upon themselves to provide one of the tinctures you've given my father, which I know are of good standing and may have assisted.
You do a credit to me, sir. If I could ask about her diet, some small questions, if anything that we could do to try and help the others.
I'm afraid that I've not taken the time to learn the details, but when I return for the next package, I will bring a note with all of the information provided on it. At the same, if you could let me know perhaps if you've provided, I understand there to be, and I just make sure he's not also shipping the same tincture to someone else, that we indeed do have the list of everyone who is currently sick in Tarryford.
He mentions that he is helping pretty much each of the ones that are the poorer. Notably, he's not shipping anything to Mr. Havering. Nothing is going through him. In fact, he tried to reach out to his wife, Susanna Havering, and was quite rudely rebuffed. So he has not sent anything to them. What he does note is that it's no harm done, no offense made. Simply some of the nobility are less keen on my services. It's a shame, especially since the new Mr. Northlake has taken up some of my tinctures.
Oh, he has, I see. Well,
and as you have, here we are, being catering to some of the finest in the area.
You are a man of esteem, Mr. Carlton. I will bid you good day.
And you as well.
And thank you.
Enjoy the evening.
Take my leave.
Whatever.
Walk out, get a few... I'm picturing that health food store smell, which I personally hate.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You have a few rattling bottles, and you can head towards the surgery. The four of you will convene at the same period now. Miss Radcliffe, have you taken any efforts to repair or hide the tear to your...
Yeah, we don't have enough time to make repairs, but I'll just hold it up and just say, "Oh, I took a small slip by I think a nail of some kind out of a building. I'm quite all right though. There's no blood, not hurt."
Oh dear,
perhaps...
and I will have needle and thread in my one of my many pockets because I just do, and
Yeah.
while I'm not a sewer, I know enough about this kind of thing to just be able to just quite quickly and easily.
Perhaps we can perform, fabric surgery when we get to the doctors.
Oh yes, quite. Thank you, dear.
The hospitality of the town never ceases to amaze. Really, thank you.
I've collected your effects, and I'll hand over the tincture.
Oh, thank you, Miss Bodgerson. I think this should They should fix me right up.
Shall we head inside then?
Let's.
Okay.
Can I did I have time to make a brief stop on the way into the surgery at all?
Possibly. The two of you are behind Mr. Potterton and Miss Radcliffe, though, so not a great wealth of time. But if you want to do something briefly.
Yeah, I wanted to duck into a stationer, which I assume the town has there. That is the place where people get paper and books.
Sure.
And would like to put a request in at the counter, which just like for a for something specific, to see if they can assist me with that.
Okay. How niche? Because if it's something they'll need to call the way to London for or something, which if it's fairly niche it will be, they can certainly put words out, but it may be sometime.
I might tell you what it is later, Dave, and you can tell me how niche it is.
Nice.
All the same, you can.
I see.
In that case, all the same, you can ask them whether or not they can accept. We will need to figure out when I know.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a brief, stop in to also to pick up some more like paper and things like that for just general.
Well, I can
use.
do that. Yes, yeah, and I can help out with that and speed along our journey if it's.
No worries.
For this one specifically, I'll make an excuse on it being like on the church's account, so I'm gonna go and speak to them, but very much like appreciate the offer, but I'll handle this one if you're just in case. I might also say just in case the other two are like,
Yes, because we were running a bit late, which was my fault.
If you
Very married couple.
Absolutely no faults even remotely implied, but just if you do see them please,
Yes, I will hurry on ahead to the surgery, because knowing that we've taken a little bit of extra time to get her, with the Reverend absorbed in his research and me taking the extra time to chat to Miss Northlake.
If they are there already, please make my apologies. I'll be there momentarily. I just need to sort out some extra books and paper for the rectory.
Of course. See you in a moment.
You're ready for some fun etymology?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you have the market there, and all the marketers would come in, come out, because all their goods were either like food that went off, or it was like light enough they wouldn't leave it there. You'd come in, you'd find a market stall, you'd set up, the day you pack up, except for one stall where you'd buy the paper and buy the books. That stuff was just too heavy, so those sellers couldn't leave the stuff, couldn't take the stuff away. They'd have to like bring all their goods in and guard it and leave it there. And so every time you came to the market, every store was in a different place, except for one store where you'd buy the books and the pens, the paper. That was the one stall that remained stationary.
Is that really the origin? That's great.
That is what's in my head, and I think it's true.
I'll
I don't
take
have a source
it.
for you.
No one tell me if otherwise.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
While we're on etymology.
The name for that is very specifically the stationer. I imagine stationary became like, but yeah, the stationer is where books and paper. But that's very cool.
It was too heavy.
While we're on etymology, so you said Icarus early, Dave, and I was very interested in it. So it is a word, Icarus, of or resembling or characterized by Ica, but a synonym which I didn't know about is Sanies, or Sanies, which apparently is specifically to do with something that has like come out of a wound and is the root of sanitary. So there you go.
Is that at all related to because Ica is like, it is I think Greek, and I think it's related to blood or one of the biles. So I know that blood is also sanguine.
Sanguine.
So whether there's any combination of that.
Yeah.
But specifically, Ica, the concept of it being blood is where the word petrichor comes from, which is the smell that you get after fresh rain, and it literally means like blood of stone.
I love
the earth's
love a
like
good word.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
And fun fact, petrichor was coined by Australian scientists.
Aussie.
We did do something right.
We love it.
This is not what the audience signed up for, but it's
what they're getting.
There's too many people on this stream who are fascinated by the English language, or language in general, so we'll be able to...
Yeah, we love a good word. Terrific. Well then, I think, genuinely, we're gonna park it there. Look at the time. So, tune in next week for more good words and maybe some role playing.
Maybe some time zone information too.
Yeah, who knows? Get a little weird with it, whatever. So leaving it there with the four of you gathering outside of Dr. Parsons' surgery, a sort of beautiful little house in the town with the midwife just next door, looking to go inside and find out more about this strange sleeping sickness. Elsewhere is the Four Feathers Tavern, where the recent deceased owner his wife still remains, and also a strange brigand inside with some connections to Miss Jane Radcliffe. Or is it Molly? All this and more when we return next week. Same place, slightly different time depending on where you are. We hope we'll see you. Interesting.